We started on a particular study here in Matthew chapter 1. And we want to pick up on that again and follow through. And of course, it's on one of the most exciting passages of Scriptures in the Scriptures itself. And I know you've memorized it. You have your devotions in it all the time. And of course, it's the genealogy. So it's Matthew chapter 1. And in the first 17 verses, he gives this 42 verses, 42 generations of genealogy, which was really important to the Jews. We described that to you. It was important to the Jews because if you claim to be a Messiah, the very first test that they would ask you, very first thing they'd ask you, which was a test, which was, what is your lineage? And if you were not of the lineage of King David, you were not even... was not even possible for you to be the Messiah, because the promise was made to King David and that he would always have a son who would be ruling on the throne of Judah, which of course, when it filtered down through the prophecies, was a focus on the person of Christ. So the Messiah had to be of that lineage. And you'll note in chapter 1, verse 1, the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David. So he starts right out with that thing. The son of David. Then he moves to Abraham, son of Abraham. And you realize that Abraham was way before David. But he starts with King David because that was a key. And then he begins this genealogy, which begins to walk you down through the lineage of King David. And father beget so-and-so, and so-and-so beget so-and-so, and so-and-so beget so-and-so, down to King David, and right on down then to Joseph and Christ. So that whole genealogy becomes really significant. But what's really exciting to me is that he lays this out for you in verse 17 as a summary of the genealogy. And I'd really would read the genealogy to you, but I can't pronounce the names. So in verse 17, he gives this phenomenal summary of the whole genealogy. And he lays it out in thirds for us, and that's what we began to talk about a couple of Saturdays ago. So I want to read verse 17 with you, for you. It says, so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. From David until the captivity in Babylon are 14 generations. And from the captivity in Babylon until the Christ are 14 generations. So you got 14, 14, and 14. So you got thirds, bringing together the 42 generations from Abraham down to the person of Christ. Now, the verse 2 down through verse, the first paragraph down through verse 4, actually verse 5, is the first third. And it gives you all the people that were involved in that particular 14 generations. And what we discovered was, in that first third, we called it a theocracy. And the reason we call that first third a theocracy is because there are no kings listed in that first third. So when you walk from Abraham down to, and it ends on King David, he obviously being the first king, the father of King David. So when you come to that point, there were no kings. And so Israel didn't have a king. Not really true. Israel did have a king, but God was their king. And that was the significant point of the first third of Jewish history, that God intended to be their king. And we talked strongly about that a couple Saturdays ago. And the idea that God has this significant plan, he doesn't just have a plan, he has a plan, a real plan. I mean, it's billions of years long plan. It's a plan in which he has literally brought you into play. And in this plan that God has, you play a part. And it's so easy to get all wrapped up in the details of life that you forget that you are a significant part of the movement of God for this generation. And I don't know how to instill that into you. But see, these guys in the genealogy, they were, hey, Abraham, there was all kinds of details to life. There was all kinds of things happening. There was all these situations. Abraham is living his life, got to pay the bills, got to feed the kids, he didn't have kids until one. So here's, you got all of this going on. And it's so easy to get all wrapped up in those details of life. Well, Hey, where am I getting my next meal? How am I going to? Well, what am I going to? Well, what happens if? And then what if the car doesn't? Well, if, and on it goes, that you forget to raise your head up high and look beyond the circumstances of your life and say, wait a minute. There is a sovereign God who has literally created me and has given me overwhelming purpose and destiny that's bigger than the stuff that's going on in my circumstances. And folks, if you get a hold of that, burnt toast won't bother you so much. See, the normal irritating things of life that make you and me mad just begin to grow pale in light of the significance of the bigness of what we are a part of in God's plan. Now, we also discover that not only does God have a plan, but God is the plan. And that's so phenomenal. Because you see, God has this significant plan and starts with Abraham. And who's the climax of the whole plan? Well, Jesus. Well, he's God. Well, that's right. So God has a plan. And what's the plan? Well, Jesus, who is God. So God is his own plan. So God has decided that what he wants to do in your life is focused on himself. So if you say, well, what's the plan of God for my life? That's easy. It's Jesus. You were destined and designed to be filled with him. And if you're not, then you're on your own, independent from him, and chaos is the result of that. In fact, that's what we're going to get into tonight. And as you get into this, you begin to discover the reason God is king in this whole first third is the fact that God doesn't want you to serve him. We say that, God wants my service. Yeah, I'm serving God. And hey, we do want to contribute. I got that. But really, when it comes down to it, God wants to serve you. See, that whole third of Jewish history, God provided everything for them. I think that's so phenomenal. See, God gave them manna out of the sky. They didn't plant seed, brother. They were in their wilderness running around. And God was directing them and brought water out of the rock, quail in the bush, made their shoes not wear out, all this stuff. God was constantly defeated their enemy. Walk around Jericho 7 times and the walls fall in. I mean, who would think up something like that? Well, God did. So God was doing all the strategy of war, the expansion of territory, protecting his people, feeding his people, everything. Hey, didn't they participate? Yeah, they were right in the middle of it. Isn't that they were lazy. It's just that God was in charge and he was supplying everything. God wants to do that for you. Now, you don't have to have God involved. You can go off on your own and say, I'll provide for myself. Okay, how's that working out for you? See, you could have a king who wants to provide everything for you. Again, that won't make you lazy. That won't, well, I can just sit and lazy boy recline. No, you're going to participate, but somehow, when he gets involved and begins to direct your activity and begins to move through you, oh, you got to get in on this. Because this is life itself. And that's the first third of Jewish history. Now, what we want to talk about tonight is the second third of Jewish history, it's tragic, but hey, there it is. And it starts in verse 7, actually verse 6, with the birth of King David, and then goes down through verse 11. And here's the way it's stated in the summary. First third of Jewish history is, so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. That's where there's no king. Then he says, from David, who's a king, until the captivity in Babylon are 14 generations. Now, the interesting thing is that when you read all the people who are listed, all the guys that are listed in there who are ancestors of Christ, when you read from David all the way down to the captivity in Babylon, guess who they are? They're all kings. See, the first third of Jewish history, no kings. God is king. Then the second third of Jewish history, they had a man king. Well, where'd that come from? Well, you probably have read the Old Testament story, but they got together one day, Israel got together one day and said, we really would like to run our own show. It isn't that we're against God. We like to have him around. I mean, he's nice, he's a backup plan. That's it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take God and we're going to put him in this little cubicle in the temple. Aha. Put this great big veil there. That's it. And keep him in there so we know where he is. And if we need to get to him, we can. If a real emergency comes up, in the meantime, we'll run our own show, have our own time. But if we get into trouble, we've always got a backup plan, and it's God. Sound familiar? That's the way we operate, isn't it? See, God's our backup plan. I got it all figured out, and then when I get in a mess, oh, hey, God, hey, would you mind? And then he helps us out, and we, hey, go back to your cubicle. And we go on with our life. See, they wanted that. They wanted to run their own show, do their own thing, be their own king. So they wanted a man king. So they came to Samuel and said, hey, we've decided that we'd like to have our own king. We want to rule ourselves. Samuel said, hey, you really don't want to do that. He went to God with the whole proposition. And Samuel took it kind of personal, like they were against him. But God said, Samuel, it doesn't have anything to do with you. Get over that. What it has to do with is me, God said. They don't want me running their lives. They want me as a backup plan to get them out of their messes. But when it comes down to sticking my fingers right in the middle of their life and guiding and providing for their living experience, they're not interested in that. So this is not a slap in your face. This is a slap in my face, God said. So God really came through strong with that. In fact, let me read you what he said to Samuel. He said, but you have today, here's what he said to Israel through Samuel. But you have today rejected your God, who himself saved you from all your adversities and your tribulations. And you have said to him, no. Ever done that? No. We want a king over us. Now therefore present yourself before the Lord by your tribes and by your clans. So God said, guys, you've rejected me because you don't want me as your king. And he went on to give details. We don't have time to get into that, but he began to describe to them, you really don't want a man king. Because you know what he's going to do? Taxation. Going to take your best young men, put them in an army. Going to take your best young ladies, make them serve in the court. Serve in the palace. Going to build this big palace. Going to cost you a fortune. All of that took place when they could have had God, who's really cheap. Yeah. You don't have to build a house for him. Well, we built the church for him. No, we didn't. We built it for ourselves. See, this is not his house. He doesn't live here. Blow this thing apart, and hey, he's not out in the cold. We're out in the cold. He's not. See, and he wants to provide for us, but we shut him down, put him in a cubicle, and said, hey, we don't want a king. We don't want you to be king. We want our own king. We want to run our own show. We want to rule over ourselves. Now, here's what I want you to get. Here's the concept. The minute, well, probably took longer than a minute, but the minute Israel did that, see, for 1/3 of their history, God is their king, and they're getting along fine. They have everything they need. Enemies are defeated. Everything's going great. And when they came and said, wait a minute, we want to rule ourselves, and we want a man king, and we want to do our own thing. The minute that happened, you know what took place? Captivity. Did you read it? Yeah. From David until the captivity. So where ruling themselves got them was captivity. They ended up annihilated. They ended up another nation coming in, overthrowing them, taking them into slavery, killing their men. They ended up in captivity. So here's the concept. See, the minute Jesus isn't king of my life and sticking his fingers in the middle of my living and directing me and providing for me, and I'm working in partnership with him, the minute that doesn't happen, you know what takes place? Captivity. Now, this is so ironic because it looks like it would be opposite of that. See, I don't want somebody telling me what to do. I want to do my own thing. It's my life. I want to be free. But the minute I choose that in my own life, I end up in captivity. Now, folks, there's so much proof for that you cannot possibly deny that for your living. It's phenomenal. That's the concept of the passage. The minute they said, we want to be our own king, we want to run our own show, we want to do our own thing, the minute that took place, wham! They don't do their own thing. They're in captivity. How can I describe that to you? Sin, at its core, is a self-rulership. Sin is not really about a deed. It produces deeds, obviously. It produces activities, sure it does. But you could get rid of all the activities and be the best person in the world and still be the worst sinner that exists. Because it isn't about the activity of the deed. It's about this, I want to do my own thing. I'm going to live my own life. And if you haven't figured it out yet, your worst enemy is yourself. There was a guy who was taking a survey out of Reader's Digest. It was about home and family and relationships and so forth. And it was presenting all of these problems. What is the problem in your home concerning this? What is the problem in your home concerning that? How about the problem in your home concerning your wife, your kids, your dog, just all what? And finally he gave up and just took a big pencil and over the survey wrote, me. I'm my own biggest problem. Carlyle said there was this monster that followed him around everywhere he went. It was about 10 feet tall and dressed in black and had a black veil over his face, and you couldn't tell who it was. And just like a shadow, a bad shadow. And everywhere he went, this monster came after him. And he'd go downtown, and it would be about 10 paces behind him and follow him around and scared him half to death and just constantly ruining his life, haunting him. And he'd go into the living room, and it'd be at the living room door waiting on him. And he'd go into the kitchen, and it would be in the kitchen table, by the kitchen table waiting on him. And everywhere he went, there was this monster just haunting his life and scaring him half to death. And finally one day he said, I couldn't take it any longer. Said, I started downtown. The monster came after me, 10 paces behind me, just haunting me, scaring me, after me. And I slackened my pace, and it drew closer. And I slackened my pace, and it drew closer yet. And I slackened my pace again, and it drew closer yet. And when I thought I could get by with it, Carlyle said, I whirled around. I grabbed that thing by the throat. I yanked the veil off of its face. Oh, good night, it's me. See, I'm the guy that's been... See, I thought it was my dad. He dropped me twice on my head when I was a kid. I thought it was my wife. I thought it was me all the time. Me all the time. Pogo in the cartoons came bounding out. He was dressed in armor. He said, hey, I've found the enemy! And it's us. It's us. If you want to know where the problem in your life is tonight, it's sitting right here in your chair. And the reason it's a problem, the reason you're the problem, it's not that you're bad, not that I'm bad, because I'm a nice guy. A few amens would help. It's that we've just decided to Listen, nobody's going to tell me what to do. But if you think about that, you know better than that. Because somebody's always telling you what to do. I wasn't going to tell you this story because I've told it so often. But I'm going to do it. This kid, he's 16, 17, flunking out of school, into drugs. Drug dealers are after him because he's been selling drugs and didn't pay and, all that. And police are after him, and he's just in a mess. So his mom, she packs his bags, grabs him, puts him in a car, and they come clear out of the county to another county up by where we lived. And she got an apartment there and was going to give him a fresh start. Great idea. She called me and said, I want you to come over and see him. And yeah, okay. She said, but if you come and he knows you're coming, he won't be here. He'll leave. So we're going to have to trick him. This is really great. So when he gets home, I'll give you a call. And you just slip over and surprise him. And I said, okay. So she calls me. I go over. There he is. He turns white as a sheet when I walk in. Because I knew the family. So when I walked in. And we're carrying on a conversation. Not him, his mother and I are carrying on a conversation, trying to involve him, but he doesn't get involved. I can see he's getting nervous. He's going to leave. I got just a couple minutes to talk to him. If I'm going to do anything, you got to do it now because he's going to get up and leave. So he gets up, and I say, hey, go for a walk with me. So we stepped out the front door, went down the sidewalk. And as they're at the sidewalk, it was dark. Street lights on. It's down to the end of the sidewalk. About 2 minutes, back 2 minutes. So you got about 4 minutes on this trip. So, hey, we're walking down. I turn to him and I say, hey, what are you feeling? What's going on inside of you? What's happening to you inside? And he looked me right in the eye and said, hey, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm telling you, nobody's going to tell me what to do. He said, preachers are not going to tell me. I said, hey, whoop, nobody's telling you what to do. School teachers are, no, nobody's going to tell me what. I'm telling you, nobody's going to tell me what. My mom, dad, no, hey, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I said, hey. By that time, we're at the end of the sidewalk, and we're turning around and coming back. And I turned to him and said, well, hey, what's your plans? What's your dream? What do you got in mind? He looked me right in the eye, didn't crack a smile. Looked me right in the eye and said, in a few months, I'll turn 18, and I'm going to join the Marines. And nobody's going to tell. What? You're joining the Marines? See, you can say, nobody's going to tell. No, you were built for somebody to tell you what to do, and somebody's going to tell you what to do. You don't have any choice on that. Because you weren't built to be independent. God did not create you to be independent. He created you to be dependent upon Him. And it's the old illustration of the train on the track, man. And the train and the locomotive says, hey, I hate this track. I'm not going where I want to go. And I'm jumping this track. Psst. You go nowhere. Why? Because you were built for the track, son. See, somebody's going to tell you what to do. See, you don't have any choice on that. And isn't it interesting? The minute I rebel and say, nobody's going to tell me what to do, I'm going to be my own king, I end up in captivity. Come on, you know how it is. First cigarette I smoked because I wanted to. Tasted good. Tried it again. Now I can't quit. See, first beer I had, whoa, out with the guys, wow, good time, woo, hey. Next thing I know, I'm an alcoholic. I'm in captivity. See, I took drugs. Whoa, this is fun. See, there was pornography. Oh, this is good stuff, man. Next thing I know, I can't give this stuff up. It's running my home. Do you see how it works? See, that's the concept. Because you weren't built. The Chinese have a proverb. He who spits into the wind spits in his own face. Try it. Stick your head out the car. That's the concept. Because you were built. See, there is a sovereign Jesus, man, who literally wants to. He's got your best in mind. He has a plan. And you weren't built for captivity. You were built for freedom. But there isn't freedom off the track. See, you were built for Him. And outside of Him, there's nothing but captivity. Captivity. Jesus. Whew. Nobody's pointing a finger at anybody else here tonight. Because we've all been there, Jesus. We've all spit in our own face. My, my, my. We shook our fist right in the middle of your face and said, hey, move aside, Jesus, I'm doing my own thing. We've all gone our own way. And it's always, every single time, it's ended up in captivity. Could we come back to freedom? Could we come back to knowing you? Could we open up our lives to you tonight? Could you literally become king of my life? Could you and I become partners again in the business of living? Would you wrap your arm around me? Would you do inside of me what needs to be done? Would you forgive? Would you cleanse? Could I come under your control? God, I've gotten clear out of control. Could you bring me back into control? I've gotten clear out of size. Could you bring me back to the size I'm supposed to be? Could you be my king again? I'm sick of captivity. Hey, heads are bowed. You could be free. See, you have no choice on this. Meaning, you're going to be a slave of something. Something's going to master you. Something's going to reach out and grab your life and dominate you. The only thing you have a choice on is what's going to do that. And you and I know tonight, Jesus is the only place freedom is found. Would you be His? Would you in a new way become partners in the divine plan for your life? Altars open. No embarrassment to kneel. Why wouldn't you? He's the king. No embarrassment in coming to Him. Why wouldn't you? It's freedom. You are free tonight. By the power of Jesus. To love Him. To be His. To know life. To run into His arms. To experience Him. You're free tonight. Nothing can keep you back. Nothing can stop you. you're free. Want to kneel with me? Be obedient.